Welcome to the Fearlessly Authentic Sash and Soul podcast. In each episode, we'll explore the power of embracing authenticity with a winning mindset and overall well-being to help you navigate life and the pageant world with confidence and resilience. I'm Rayanna Johnson, former Miss Wisconsin and founder of Fearlessly Authentic Coaching. So let's dive in. Welcome to Sash and Soul. Welcome back to Sash and Soul, everyone. It is yet another lovely episode within the Crowned and Candid series. This series is all about real conversations with current title holders who are getting ready to give up their title after almost an entire year of being in the job. And the whole purpose is to bring you an unfiltered look at what it truly means to wear the crown. So we're not just talking about what you see on Instagram or in TikTok or all the highlight reels that we're so used to, or what you saw on the Miss America stage. We are talking about the down and dirty, nitty gritty work of it all behind the scenes and the emotional roller coaster and the growth and everything that comes with being a title holder as a state title holder throughout an entire 365 days. So today I'm really thrilled to introduce our Miss North Carolina 2024, Carrie Everett. And we were just chatting a little bit before we hit record. I'm so excited about this particular message. Her overall message is so simple. Just give yourself grace is what she said. So we'll be talking all things self-care, self-love, and grace for yourself in all aspects of pageantry and life today. And with that, welcome, Carrie. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. Should I introduce myself now?
Yes, please. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Carrie Everett. I am a junior now at North Carolina Central University studying vocal performance. I am a child of Liberian immigrants, so that's a huge part of my story and why I do what I do. My CSI, or my community service initiative, was Seize the Opportunity. We need equity to build communities, and that's all about making pageants more inclusive and accessible to all young women from all backgrounds. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, I love your CSI, and I want to do an entire episode just about that. So stay tuned for that. What got you into pageants in the first place?
So it's very interesting, but my school counselor at my high school, her daughter was, because we have the Little Sisters program, but her daughter was at the called, just Sparkles, because I competed at Miss Washington before I competed in North Carolina. But I was competing for the title of Miss Auburn because, Miss Auburn's outstanding teen at the time.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Because she was daughter have, an older sister. I didn't really know what it entailed at the time. I just thought that I was just a mentor in this program. What I didn't understand was I was actually joining the Miss America organization. So her daughter was actually adopted from Ethiopia, and she felt like her daughter was kind of out of place sometimes. It didn't have like full representation. So she wanted her daughter to have that, bond with somebody that kind of looked like her and represented her. And, I was a great example for her. I got first runner up on my first try against 13 girls, and I was encouraged to keep going. So I competed for Miss Auburn the next year, and the rest is history.
So how did you end up from Washington to North Carolina?
So I graduated from high school in 2022. I was Miss Auburn in 2022, and I competed at Miss Washington that summer. But I knew that I wanted to go to school out of state because I specifically wanted to attend an HBCU, and there are no HBCUs on the West Coast. So I made up my mind that I was going to move across the country. I just didn't know where and when yet. So I took a gap year off from school because, being a title holder and being in high school and doing all the things, like I was senior class president, I was BSU president, I was all these things to everybody. So I wanted that gap year to really discover who I was and what I wanted to do. I took that time and I chose North Carolina Central University because the music department fit exactly what I was looking for. And I packed up my life and I moved to North Carolina to go to school. And then I decided to compete because that was always within the plan.
So you went through your first year of college in North Carolina and then competed for Miss North Carolina. This was your first time competing in North Carolina?
Yes, it was.
What was going through your head the night that you were crowned?
So I'm going to talk about the before crowning because I think that really impacted what I thought after crowning. But, throughout the process, a lot of people encouraged me to just aim to be top 10 or, aim to place or do well or maybe win a talent award. But in my head, I was like, I came here to win. I came here with an understanding that my purpose is greater than just showing up. I have to show up and then take up space. And a lot of people really were like, girl, it's okay no matter what happens. And I was like, no, I'm not going to be fine no matter what happens. And I'm always okay with losing. I think it's always a great experience no matter what. But I knew what I came there to do. I felt like it was God's ordained time and purpose for me to win at that particular time. So I really gave it my all. And when we get to the top 10, I was like, oh my God, I'm in the top 10, like that feeling of, okay, I made it past the first, the first step, as long as I make the top 10, I feel like, okay, I'm fine. And competed in all the phases. And then we get to the top five. And you know how sometimes they kind of call in order of a line? And, I could see that I was like third. I was third. Yes. I was third. And they kind of called, everybody already that was kind of in line. And then they get to the very last name and they say Johnson County. That's the county I represented. They said Carrie, Everett. I was like, okay, I just made the top five. And I said to myself, God, whatever it is, I'm grateful because I already, showed up and showed out. And I proved myself. It's my first year competing, but that's not what I came here to do. So we get to the crowning moment where they're calling out names. And when they get to the top two, the first runner up, she whispers to me and she says, you're going to be a fantastic Miss North Carolina. And her name is Keely Jones. And I was like, girl, what are you talking about? It's two of us up here, right? But she whispered that to me. And at that moment, I felt a sort of peace and calm come over me because I was like, oh my God, I think I really just won this on my first try against all odds. Like if you understood the process of how I got there, at the time I won Miss North Carolina, I didn't have any money. It's actually, I had $40 when I registered to compete for my local competition. I was a broke college student. My evening gown cost $275 from Poshmark. I barely had the money to pay my state contestant fee. My local director had to help me out. So there were all these things that were telling me that maybe this isn't for you. Maybe this is meant for somebody who has the resources, that has the means to compete, that can be a representative because they have it all. But at that moment, it just, none of it mattered because it was the grace and the favor of God that truly granted me that opportunity. I statistically, maybe I don't know what statistics are, but against all odds, I was probably not supposed to win, but against all odds, I did.
I saw your post about your evening gown on National Dress Day.
Mm-hmm.
That you found it for $275 and you called your mom who was in Liberia at 2 a.m. and got the money to buy it right away. So this is a beautiful conversation piece to have because this is one of the biggest limiting beliefs for women competing in pageantry is that you need to have some wild amount of money or financial support from your family, all of these things like ducks in a row in order to be successful. So tell me about how you kind of overcame some of those limiting beliefs, if you ever had them, that for some reason this couldn't happen for you because you didn't have those resources.
Mm-hmm. So, as the saying goes, God does not call the qualified, he qualifies the called. And if you really feel like you need those things and, you're fighting with yourself and saying, I need to have this, I need to have that, the Lord will provide for you. And I don't know what everybody's beliefs are, but if you want to say the universe or whatever, if it's meant to be, it will happen. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter what gown you wear. You could wear couture. You could wear something that's off the rack. But if something is meant for you, it will fall into place. Like when I first started competing, I don't think I've ever worn anything. Yeah, I don't think I've ever worn anything that cost over $1,000 prior to Miss America. So I, in my head, it was like, how will I save money and put my best foot forward? It was never about, let me wear the most expensive gown or the most expensive shoes, and that will be the way I win. Because it's not about that in reality. If you put your best foot forward, if you present yourself the way you're the way you are fully and authentically, if they can see your heart and your heart for service first and foremost, if you're able to compete and get on that stage, why would they deny you because you don't have the funds or the resources for it? And I would hope this organization doesn't operate that way, as well as any pageant, because that's not what we're supposed to be about.
I think you are a poster child for this message too, because you compete in a highly competitive or in what the rest of us like over here in the Midwest see as a competitive pageant state in North Carolina, right? Like most of the southern states seem like really competitive. And so I think that, anyone that is competing in a really competitive pageant state, I think that's kind of the idea is that you need the couture gowns and you need, the custom interview outfits and all of this stuff. And it's true, you just don't. One of the things you said that I want to talk more about, though, is you said like you really felt like this was ordained for you this year, but you didn't say, so that gave me all the comfort and I felt really good about it going in. You said, so I worked my butt off for it. So can you tell me that mentality? Because I think sometimes we sometimes fall into this, like, if it's meant to be, it'll happen. And we kind of like take a back seat a little bit rather than if it's meant to be, it'll happen. And I'm going to put everything I have into it. So can you tell me a little bit more about your mentality in that?
So part of my mentality was that with that is I was hungry. When I say I was hungry, I needed to win Miss North Carolina, not because it was going to make me the most amazing, outstanding person and give me all this attention or fix my life or fix all my problems. It was because I knew that that was what God was calling me to do at that particular moment. And sometimes we feel like, okay, this is something that was prophesied over me. Somebody said this was going to happen for me, or I'm good at this, so naturally it will fall into place. You have to get up off of your butt and go for something. You have to get up off of your butt and go for it. I was practicing my walk at 2 a.m. I was singing every chance I had. I was very particular about every piece of wardrobe that I put on that stage. I was calculated in my marketing. At work weekend, I was listening, excuse me, and taking notes on every little thing. I watched every Miss America competition and every Miss North Carolina competition that I could because I knew that I was not up against, something easy. And even though we feel like, yeah, it's for me, it should happen, it'll fall into place, you do have to work for things to fall into place. As you're moving and you're feeling like things are falling apart, they're falling into place. I don't think I've ever just expected things to come to me. I guess it's just never been that way in my life. I've always had to work, you know, twice as hard in some cases. But I wanted to make sure that I was ready to go to Miss America when I won Miss North Carolina. And I knew that wouldn't show up if I just, you know, let it be. Even if I had one that night, that was not all I wanted. I wanted to show up and show out at Miss America and be ready to go. I wanted the judges to see not only is she ready to win this title and carry this crown here, she could possibly go to Miss America and do well there.
As you were working so hard out of this hunger, this thirst, this drive, how did you maintain your sense of self and groundedness in that process?
So I call it the pageant crazy or but I get a little bit obsessive when I really want something and it tends to take a toll on my mental health. In preparation for Miss Johnson County, Miss North Carolina, Miss America, I was in a headspace of I need this, I need this, I need this. But sometimes that gets a bit dangerous, especially when you start prioritizing that over your mental health or over your self-worth, or you get into that headspace of comparison, even questioning your capabilities and who you are as a person based off of a crown. But the way I always ground myself is I am so grounded in fasting and prayer, and I make sure that I take the time to operate in a headspace of, am I putting this on a pedestal and idolizing this title for, reasons that are outside of giving glory to God or being a representative or being a good person and showing up for my community. Like, grounding yourself in the reason why you're here rather than the goal. Like, I want the crown, yes, but why? And when you know your why, you ask yourself the why constantly, then I think you get back into the headspace of, hey, I am not doing this because of a piece of metal and some gemstones. I'm not doing this for a sash with, words that get like the sash gets dirty anyway. You'll be fine. But, grounding yourself always. And for me, it's fasting and prayer. For other people, it might be meditation or working out or yoga. Just finding whatever works for you to calm yourself down and just sit down. Like, sit yourself down.
Yeah, I think focusing on that big picture, your purpose, your why, everything that you just said is like one of the best foundations, like the foundation of making sure that you are centering yourself and grounding, like making sure that you are focusing on that grace for yourself and why you're doing it rather than getting all caught up in the weeds of all the things that just really don't matter. Like you were saying, like the comparison or the self-doubt, like those things are just, they're going to cause you to stay stuck. And we got to keep moving forward towards that goal.
Right. Because you can't look back. Forward is not backwards. So if you keep looking back and saying, okay, but I haven't done this year, or I haven't accomplished this goal this year. If I go to Miss North Carolina or if I go to Miss America and the judges see that I haven't done this, but then why don't you just go forward and do something else? Like it's a matter of always looking forward, always having hope, always finding strength in the why.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes moving forward is like taking a beat and sitting in that prayer, sitting in that meditation, like having grace for yourself, taking care of yourself so that you can regroup to move forward.
Uh-huh. And I also feel like a lot of title holders get lost in the busy. Like we all feel the need to make ourselves busy this whole time and make sure everybody knows that we're doing something always. Like we're constantly doing something. You have to see me post that I'm here, that I'm there, that I'm there, that I'm there. But you're a human being at the end of the day. Like I said, give yourself the grace. You're not a machine. And people seeing you being busy does not add or subtract to the fact that you're still a state title holder.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. It is, you said it before, it's the way you show up and show out. And it's so true. All right. So, what did you think this job was going to look like versus like what it actually looked like? Was it any different than what you had imagined?
Mm-hmm. I will say I came in with the expectation that I might be able to take a year off from school. But because I found my eligibility in the fact that I am a North Carolina student, I have been doing this as a full time student. And for me, that looks like, in preparation for Miss America, the first 6 months was something. Like I would wake up very early, work out, go to my classes, come from my classes, take a beat, do some work, maybe go to an appearance if I have an appearance that night, work on some homework, have a little bit of time to myself, rinse and repeat every day. And it got to a place where I was like, I wish I could have chosen one or the other, but it also made my journey so unique for people to see the possibility in being able to balance both and do all the things. While I would advise against in the future for others, maybe not a full schedule, even though it's required if you are an out-of-state student. But I didn't expect to be so drowned in school during the year, and I will be honest about it, I feel like I was drowning at some point, like around November, and that's where everybody started getting like, but getting America started to feel like, oh, I can do this right now, but yeah, I didn't have that expectation going in, but looking back, I made it through. There was no way to go around it. There was no way to go over it or under it. I just had to go through it, and I'm glad that I did.
Did you ever experience like this, like, what did I get myself into, or any kind of like imposter syndrome, especially early on?
I mean, especially being that it was my first year and I didn't really know anybody here. And feeling out of place comes with joining any new thing you do. And then to be tossed into the new thing head first and be the representative of the new thing and be the head of the new thing. It was like, okay, I don't know much about North Carolina, but I learned. I didn't know a lot of people from North Carolina, but I learned. I built those connections, and I I did experience imposter syndrome a lot of the time, and being like, oh my god, like, did I deserve to win this? Was I the right choice for this? But then you think to yourself, if not me, then who? You know, Like, I won this for a reason, and I put my everything into it. And sometimes I go back and I read like my notes and my stuff from when I was preparing for it. Like, I had a plan, I had a purpose. I, you know, I listened and I worked, and things worked in my favor. So why should I not feel like I deserve this, or why should I not, carry this with pride and joy and know that this is something that I deserved?
Yeah, it's not like you took it from someone. The judges entrusted you with this position for the year and they saw your capability in you. And there's a part of that that you also have to trust.
Mm-hmm. Different judges, different day. I might not have won if it was a different set of judges, but then I think to myself, no, I would have won.
I love that. Well, you had your sights on it and this was it for you.
Yeah.
I remember like my last year going into Miss Wisconsin, it was my very last year of eligibility. I had already done the job for 6 months. Um, the craziest of circumstances, at least what it felt like to me. And I didn't have a backup plan that year. That was my first year of 4 times competing for Miss Wisconsin that I didn't have a backup plan. I didn't have if I don't win this, then I have something else to look forward to. My mom had asked me, she's like, what are you going to do if you don't win? And I said, I don't know. This is my only plan.
My friend Jamie at Miss North Carolina, she was like, what are you going to do when you get back? What are you going to do when you get home? I said, I'm not going back. I'm not. I'm not going back to being a local title holder. She was like, are you going to compete again? I said, no.
Did you have moments of worrying that you would be disappointed?
I, like the night before finals, I was so worried. I couldn't even sleep. But
Mm-hmm.
I was like, what will happen if I don't win this? I'm just going to go home and be so hurt and broken and disappointed. But then I was like, wait a minute. I was a double prelim winner on my first try. I had no reason to doubt my capability, not just the prelims. I had a different aura about myself that I don't think I've ever competed with before. Like, I
Mm,
just felt like it was right. And there was
yeah.
like, there was doubt, there was fear, but I kept seeing things that reassured me, and I kept praying and I kept trusting. And a lot of the time, I think a lot of people where they struggle with, you know, the belief is the trust. Like, you have to just trust. And but I was just so calm and relaxed, and I felt doubtful the night before, but I woke up the next morning like, girl, Carrie, Everett, North Carolina.
Okay, so into the year, we're crowned, we're diving in. What was the business side of it like for you?
So it was interesting because the Miss North Carolina board is, like I said, I competed in Washington, but it shows up different every state. Like, the board in Washington is a lot smaller. Um, it's a bit of a chill vibe. The North Carolina board, it's a system, and I'm working with all these completely new people, and it's interesting because I came in knowing that there were, like, I knew about like 3 or 4 members of the board, but really it is a whole unit of people, and there's a big state committee along with it. So working with this new unit of people has been so interesting, and I'm blessed to know each and every one of them. Like, they're truly my family at this point. But I everybody has a different role, everybody has a different task, and they have helped me so much in fulfilling my role and making sure that I stay on top of my stuff and on top of my task. A lot of my appearances are booked in advance. Thanks to them, a lot of the things that I did throughout the year, the opportunities I had were based off connections that they built. And in terms of like sponsorship, we have a sponsor team that reaches out to sponsors and builds an entire sponsorship package. And the sponsors fulfill their end, we fulfill ours, and they make sure that they keep us on track and doing what we're supposed to do. Social media wise, we've had help with like, the social media team and the people who are in charge of PR. We had a PR firm. We also had a legal counsel on the board. So it's a whole system that I was kind of like, oh, but here we are. And we just had to make it work. At some points, it gets a little bit like I say, it's going to get daunting because there are so many people that you have to go through, but it's necessary, and it makes the process a lot smoother on everybody's end if communication goes always.
What were some of the biggest lessons that you learned from this experience of working with the Miss North Carolina board?
interdependence is better than being dependent or independent. So I think I've always known that, but I really learned this year that it truly does take a team, and I don't have to do it by myself. I don't have to completely rely on myself, Like, especially with pageants, I've always felt the need to be my own coach, be my own director, be my own this, be my own that. Even in preparation for Miss North Carolina, I didn't have any coaches. I didn't have, you know, besides interview, my board didn't really, coach me that much in preparation because I was like, I got it. I got it. I got it. I got it. But, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to rely on others. It's okay to lean on your team and the system of people you have, the system of people that you have, because they're there for a reason. They're there to help you. And, you can't just say, no, I'm good for everything.
How did you navigate your appearances that were pre-booked for you through the organization and your CSI work that you wanted to do?
Mm-hmm. So the appearances that are pre-booked are things that every Miss North Carolina does. And I think when I was informed of that, it kind of gave me a different sense of responsibility that, hey, I have to maintain this relationship because it's super important to not only the organization, but the next girl. And, there were moments where I was like, oh, I wish I could have gone there to do this for my CSI or to help here or do this or that. But also, like, building those connections and maintaining those connections are so important, and also contributed to my CSI. There were a lot of, things that, or not things, connections I built based off of appearances that were booked. And I ended up being able to do things or connect with, different people based off of that. So, it got a bit tricky, like I said, around like November, November, December, because that's right before Miss America. But the appearances that they booked were so helpful, and they helped me build my portfolio. I don't want to say portfolio, but they helped me, you know, get in the community and get to know North Carolina more as well.
That is amazing. And I've heard great things about the North Carolina organization. So that's really fun to hear from your perspective, especially coming new and not really knowing anyone to begin with. Is like that's really powerful. Like that's inspiring that the organization is just so passionate about their girls and building up the organization. So kudos to you, Miss North Carolina organization. Um, I do want to ask a little bit about your CSI before we dive into like your journey to Miss America and what that experience was like. Just because I would imagine, just with the political climate, it's been an interesting experience for you this year.
hmm So with diversity, equity, and inclusion being such buzzwords, kind of, but misunderstood buzzwords, I will say, it was interesting navigating that, especially moving from a very blue state to a swing state that's now leaning red, and having to explain diversity and equity and inclusion to people often. It's been interesting, but especially in context of pageantry, because when people hear that we need equity in the Miss America opportunity, they're like, are you saying that Miss America isn't fair? And I'm not saying that Miss America isn't fair from a judging perspective. I'm saying that there are other contestants in this organization that sometimes do not have the resources to compete or to make it to the state level or to compete at the national level, because, like, if we want to be completely honest, resources are everything, connections are everything, and people from certain socioeconomic backgrounds are not going to be able to always afford the fees. They're not going to always be able to pay for the athletic wear or to buy all the gowns or the production dresses, et cetera, et cetera. It's going to be a little harder for some people. So we can't ignore that in, this space, because it's almost dangerous to say we're a scholarship organization that's supposed to build up young women, but only certain young women have access to that.
What was some of the kickback that you received, and how did you handle it?
I think it was just a lack of understanding of what I was trying to promote and how I was trying to go about it, because especially with my CSI having to do with recruitment and trying to get young women from other backgrounds involved, a lot of people were like, "Why only, why are you only trying to recruit HBCU students?" I was like, "I'm not only trying to recruit HBCU students. I'm just starting there because they're often the ones that get left out. I'm not just starting with people from lower socioeconomic backgrounds. I'm just, you know." I'm beginning there, but I'm not going to finish there. I want everyone to be involved in this organization, but the last will be the first, and the first will be the last. It's that type of thing. I just want to see new faces. I want to see change in the organization. I want to see changes in our boards, even if we can have that happen. At every level.
Yeah, more representation so that there's a better understanding of all different perspectives of the human experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so tell me about November. It's come up a couple of times. What was November like for you?
I'm telling you, the month before Miss America feels like your head is being squeezed constantly. And like, I don't think I could process things the way I could process them in October or December. I don't know what it was about November. I just felt like I think I cried every day. Every day. And I don't even know why I was crying. I was just like, this is so stressful between sometimes the wardrobe wasn't working. Sometimes the interview prep wasn't working. Sometimes the school wasn't working. And that's right. That's right when we're having finals at school. I was just like, oh my God, what is happening
Mm-hmm.
to me? And I would have to go on walks at night and just be like, yeah, I gotta breathe. I gotta breathe. I gotta breathe. November just felt like I was literally like this.
Yeah.
And this arm was Miss America and this arm was school.
Mm-hmm.
And they were just like,
Yeah. Rock in a hard place.
yeah.
How did you get through it? I would imagine grace is a focal point here, but like what was that process like for you and what would you say to somebody else going through a similar circumstance?
Um, excuse me, I'm a little sick. But the way I got through it was constantly communicating with the people I love and, confiding in my business manager, Miss Adrian Sulkey. Just talking to people around you, because even though you feel like people don't understand what you're going through, someone understands. And a lot of the former Miss North Carolinas, especially, were my people during that time, because they were like, I get it. Right before Miss America, Miss North Carolina 2022 and 2023, Carolyn and Taylor, they were like always there. I would ask a million questions and they would always respond. So I hope to be that Miss North Carolina to the next queen and the one after that. But confiding in people, speaking to people around you, and recognizing that you are not alone makes a major difference, even though you feel like it. And plus, you have 50 other, well, yeah, 50, because Puerto Rico, you have 50 other contestants that are competing with you, and they get what you're going through right now. So just talking to everybody.
Yeah, I think that's like a common misconception that like when you're going through that, you look around at all these other women that are also competing for Miss America and they look like they have it together. And the thing is you also look like you have it together from the outside looking in, but you don't feel that way. And so it's kind of hard to remember that every single one of those girls has their own stuff going on at the same time. And I remember feeling like that. I remember feeling like if I let it show that I feel like I'm falling apart, then they're going to see right through me and see that I'm not prepared for this, that I'm not doing a good job. And that is the biggest lie I could have told myself.
Right. And a lot of the girls were like, I'm confused too. We're all confused. So finding solidarity in our confusion definitely eased my mind a little bit. But the lonely feeling as a title holder, it does take over. Everybody has that moment where they're like, nobody understands me, but you really do have so many people across the country, not even just state title holders, but former national title holders even.
How did you well, first, where did you feel like that loneliness came from? Like when did it hit you and where did it come from?
Well, I don't have family in North Carolina, so I was basically starting from scratch in building my community. And something I think that a lot of people right now don't recognize, because we're kind of in an era of individualism, but you need community, you need people, you need to have folks that you can rely on and speak to. But I really missed my parents, I missed my siblings. Like, I felt like I was missing out on a lot. And you know, and then being a title holder, that didn't make a lot of friends my first year, because I did make friends, but I was so like in the zone that I wasn't really friends with my entire class. And then at school, it was hard to make friends at school because I was always doing something outside of school. Like I didn't go to any basketball games. I barely went to events. I only was able to go to our homecoming football games. So being busy all the time kind of took away from my social building that I really needed, especially as a college student and as a sophomore. Uh, there are times that I'm like, maybe I should have just, even though I was tired that day, I should have just forced myself to get up and go to that school event. But, I don't really want to go anyway. But I think it was just a combination of all of these things and all these emotions in this new place. But, you know, community is important. And even though I didn't have my parents there with me physically, they did help as much as they could on the phone. And some people in the organization, like my local director from Miss Johnson County, or my business manager, or the person in charge of styling from Miss North Carolina, they were really people that I could lean on. And the few friends that I did have were my professors. They were a community that I was slowly building and getting used to and getting closer to. And I'm grateful that I had them because, woo, it does get to a point where you're like, oh my God, I am tired of this.
Yeah. Did you ever feel any guilt about that? Because I mean, you going back to your crowning night and all the preparation that you put into it, like earning this position. And then when you have those moments of loneliness or exhaustion, did guilt ever creep in?
I mean, in moments where I was like, maybe I should have just waited a year or waited until I graduated and slowed down. But then again, like I said, I knew that what happened for me this year could not be replicated. And, I just felt like timing is so important. Like, I haven't seen my family since like May of 2023. Well, I went home for Thanksgiving for 2 days. But, when I say my family, I mean like all my friends, my community. I really have not seen anybody like that for a year. Actually, I said May 2022, excuse me, May 2024.
Hmm. Yeah.
But you know, I feel more so guilty about missing out on everybody's lives for this rather than like feeling guilty about winning. Because, there are moments where you're gonna be like, maybe this person would have done this better. But for me, it's just feeling like I am missing out on everybody else's lives, and I feel a little self-centered at times. And why am I crying about, you know, my dress not fitting me when there's like worse things happening out there to other people,
How did your preparation for Miss America differ from your preparation for Miss North Carolina?
So in preparation for Miss North Carolina, like I said, I kind of did most of the prep on my own. And that was a personal choice of mine. My board did offer, but I knew that um, I was just going to have to do most of the work by myself. Like the talent preparation, I spoke to my vocal professor and we did some work on that. And maybe like one or two times, and that was about it. In terms of like walking practice, I've always just done my own walking practice and stuff like that. But I was really by myself for the most part in preparation. But for Miss America, I was working with an entire team. We have mock interview panels, but we also have like the board. But working with the board members, I kind of felt like sometimes that my opinions didn't really get through to them and they really weren't understanding my vision. And I always tell people there's like a method to my madness. Like you might feel like, okay, she's a bit cuckoo in the preparation process. Cause I do get a bit like, who's practicing walking at like 1 a.m. or,
Hmm.
who's exercising at like 4 a.m. But I get a
Yeah.
range. But you know, I just want people to understand there is a method to my madness. And I think sometimes there was just a lack of understanding, but that's also on my end because I struggle to communicate with them because I really didn't understand them sometimes. Um, I don't know. It was different working by myself versus working with all these people, you know?
Hmm.
And even with styling, there were a lot of opinions. And before I just picked out my own wardrobe and I went to my board. This is what I'm wearing. This is what I'm doing with my hair. Here's this. But with Miss America, it was like we went shopping as a group. We
Mm.
we did all these things together, which I kind of appreciated and I liked and I thought it was fun. But there were some times where I was like, I wish you guys were here so I could, pick based off of what I think is right and know that it's what I really want.
Yeah, because that's a lot of voices and a lot of opinions. It's hard to navigate what you really want for yourself.
Hmm.
What were the most unexpected challenges that you faced at Miss America?
So at Miss America, oh, this haunts me to this day. I got so sick. I got
All of you
so
guys
sick.
got sick.
The worst. I don't know what happened. I don't know how it got in. I was so sick. The day we had our photo shoot with Carlos Velez, that was the first day it started. That was also the day we had our welcome ceremony, or the signing. I woke up and I was like, I don't know if I can. I don't feel right. Like I don't know if I can stand up. I started to feel like nauseous and stuff like that, and it got like way worse. And then when I did my photo shoot, I walk out of I take my photos with Carlos Velez, walk out to go change my gown. I'm in the room. There's other contestants in there. I think was it Miss DC or Miss Lou? Somebody was in there. Somebody was in there. One of the contestants was in there, and I just start throwing up in the trash. And I was just so hurt by that. I did not want to get
Oh no.
in things. I was like, God, just don't let me get sick. And I got so sick, and I was sick the whole week. Came back, had the flu. Um, I was sick the whole week, and for that reason, I think I also struggled to talk to people because I was like, and I wanted to make friends so bad, but I was just so like the whole time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And shout out to my girls. Shout out to my girls. Love them. My girls, Miss Ohio, Miss Puerto Rico. Shout out to everybody. Shout out to
Yeah.
the whole class. But I was like, oh my God, you guys aren't even seeing my real personality right now because I'm so sick. Like I couldn't even
Oh.
and I'm still surprised even that I won talent because I could barely speak.
Yeah, that's wild.
It was the worst. And like in the interview room, the interview was before that, so I'm glad because I probably would have fell over. But when we got to like the prelims, it felt like I got hit in the face every single day. I don't know where that sickness came from, but if I could change anything, it would be my health. It would be my health.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that's completely out of your control. So, like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I had no control over that. And there was a lot going on. There was something to do every day, every hour. There was always something. So, go from photo shoot, then go to welcome ceremony, then go to luau. There isn't a moment to get healthy again. There is not a moment to replenish yourself. We don't get much sleep. So,
Mhm.
how was I going to regain my health? I tried to take all the supplements, tried all the medicine, drank all the hot chicken noodle soup, and it just was not, it wasn't budging.
Wow. Okay. All this buildup, the stress during November, sick at Miss America. What was it like coming home in the aftermath of all that?
I will not lie. I was so disappointed about not placing top 10, especially because I won talent and I thought I did so good. Maybe the judges didn't think so, but I thought I did so well in all the other prelims aside from talent. So I was a bit disappointed and I was really down on myself because, I was like, maybe if I'd done this or done that or I'd been healthy, things would have been different. But also just take into consideration that if I was supposed to win, I would have won. And, you know, Abby is a fantastic Miss America, and she is what America needs right now. So I'm clearly not what America needs right now, and that's okay. I'm fine with that. So I was just, I had to make peace with the fact that it's not meant for me, and that's okay. And if there's something better, sure. If there isn't something better, sure. I just finding peace and, like I said, giving myself grace with knowing, like, I can't change it. The judges didn't see a Miss America in me, and that is a-okay because I'm not Miss America. Like, that's fine. And even, honestly, I don't know if I would have been able to be Miss America knowing that I wanted to, you know, stay in school after all that. Like, I wanted to finish my degree on time. I wanted to be, I wanted to come back and be normal again. So I don't think it would have. anyway.
So it sounds kind of like, and correct me if I'm wrong, like it kind of sounds like you didn't have the same drive of becoming Miss America as you did Miss North Carolina.
It's interesting because it's like I wanted to have the drive to become Miss America. Like I was like hungry-ish.
Yeah.
But I wanted to be Miss America, but not as much as I needed to be Miss North Carolina. Like I didn't feel the same push. Like it was almost like a desperation to be Miss North Carolina. Whereas when it was for Miss America, I was just like, this will be super cool. It would be life changing. It definitely broke my heart to lose, but I was also like, I don't even know if I could have been Miss America. That's a lot.
How has this whole experience of being Miss North Carolina, going to Miss America, coming back, like just deep diving back into the job and going to school, like how has this changed you emotionally, mentally, and even spiritually?
I genuinely feel like, even though I joke a lot, I'm very hee hee ha ha, my personality is very jokey, but I believe that I've become the most mature version of myself that I've ever been. And I look at life completely different than I did prior to winning this title. And I've always said, like, even from the beginning, like, in this order, it is Carrie Everett, Miss North Carolina, and not Miss North Carolina, Carrie Everett. But I really feel like this year has cemented into me that I am more than a crown and I am more than a title, even though I have it and I represent it. But the person behind the crown in the sash is way more important, and I have to take care of myself first. And prior to winning, I was like, I'm prepared to do anything and everything. When I get into this role, I'm going to say yes to everything, no matter what. Then I got in the role and I was like, I actually think it would be healthier for me to sometimes say no. I think it would be healthier for me to sometimes rest and to sit down. Being busy doesn't mean being productive. So prior to winning, Carrie Everett was like, I always have to be busy. I always have to be doing something. You know, I always have to be validated by people outside who are saying you are doing enough and you will make it. But now I'm just like, I'm good. I'm good with whatever. And I will continue to work hard in every aspect of my life. And I'll continue to represent everything I believe and stand for what I believe and advocate for all the things that are close to my heart. But I'm not going to you know, continue to pour from an empty cup or force myself into roles and positions that aren't for me in the name of success. And I'm only 21, so I still have a lot of growing to do. I still have a lot of life to do and things to learn. But truly, I feel like after this year, I cannot say that I'm the same person that I was. It's that last June, like 11 months ago. I don't feel like the same person, but I also don't even look like the same person. So it's
There's
just
it's wild how much change happens in a year when there's so much that happens to you, it forces that much change. Just so
yeah.
crazy.
And I don't think I would have thought that I'd become more mature from it. I thought, hey, maybe I'll just, represent the title and be done with my year. But I feel like I've been forced to grow up in a way. I more timely now. That's something that, it's funny, but I'm more timely. I'm more organized. I am more considerate of other people. I am more community oriented. I would like to think I'm more professional, more respectful. I have different goals as well, and I think I've become closer to God in this journey, which is interesting because when you're in a position where you feel like you have to rely on God, I feel like you kind of gain a certain closeness to Him as well.
Do you feel like your definition of success has changed at all through this experience?
I think I've always had the same definition of success in just setting a goal or setting goals and meeting at least one of them. People always ask in interviews, like, what's your definition of success? And I'm just always like, I set a goal and I meet a goal. Truly, I don't think that's changed, you know? And for me, success has always been impacting people and being an advocate for people, having a heart for people, and letting people know that I'm there for them. And I don't think that that goal has changed. And even if it was just one person that was impacted by me being Miss North Carolina this year, I think I have had a successful year.
So we are reaching the end of your year, and I want to know, like, how are you going to approach life as a former Miss North Carolina?
A lot of people keep asking me, like, what are your next steps? What are your next steps? I am going to continue to pour life into all the young women that are competing in the future or those who represent this title. Like, the next Miss North Carolina, whoever you may be, you're in for a wild ride, but I'm going to help you along the way as much as I can. Um, and I'm gonna just keep pouring into the organization and giving back. When I get enough money, I'll give the scholarship to McNeil Chestnut. I promise. But I'm just gonna keep pouring.
He will hold you to that. He
Yes,
will absolutely hold you to that.
yes. I will give the money when I have it. I promise. I'm just gonna keep pouring into this organization and continuing my advocacy. I am, hoping to travel and to go to West Africa this year and years after that, and maybe introduce, pageants to people in this format and possibly impact young women's lives. So, making it equitable to the world and showing people that they do have the chance to make it in any space or any system or whatever they want to achieve. But, and I'm 21. Who says I won't compete again? We'll see.
I know. I was kind of thinking about that as I was scoping out all the things that you'd been doing. So that's exciting to hear. We'll have to stay tuned for that.
Maybe, maybe, maybe.
Maybe. What advice would you give to the next Miss North Carolina?
I'm gonna say to the next Miss North Carolina, be encouraged. It's just always gonna be encouraged because there are gonna be days that it's hard. There are gonna be days that it's easy too. But through it all, just be encouraged, take heart, be strong, and know that you have people that are here for you. Even if you don't feel like it is sometimes, it's gonna be times where you're like, but we're actually there. And don't feel the need to impress everyone. Don't listen to all the voices, silence the noise in your mind and on the outside.
Absolutely. All right. If she or anyone that's listening ever doubt themselves, what would you want them to hear from you?
If God be for you, who can be against you?
Period. Mhm. Cool. All right. Let me give you the last word here. If there's anything else that is on your heart that you want to make sure that you express today to this really amazing community of listeners, many of whom are preparing for their upcoming state competition, even like going into an early local season. They may be in a completely different pageant system and considering Miss America. What's on your heart?
I feel like this is important to say to everybody, but take time and get off your phone. Like, get off your phone or get off the internet. Stop looking at everything. You don't always have to take everything in from what you're seeing. Like, when we get into pageant mode, during pageant week, I turn my phone off and I don't text anybody back. I don't respond to any messages. I don't scroll. I don't go to any like anonymous pages or forums. I don't look at any pageant content because your focus should be on Ken. So, not just during pageant season, but just in your regular life, I think everybody is kind of getting in the headspace of, you know, I got to be on my phone all the time. I always have to scroll and see what's next. I always have to refresh and know what's next. I got to know what's happening all the time. Put your phone down, please. Like, put your phone down and go read a book. Go read a book. Go read. Listen to people around you and go learn. Listen to the pageant elders. I know it's hard sometimes. They got different opinions. Go talk to somebody.
I consider myself a pageant elder at this point.
No, girl, you are not a pageant elder. You're like a pageant aunt.
I turned 35 this week. I feel like I am officially a pageant elder.
I don't know about happy birthday, by the way, but I don't know about elder. Maybe a pageant auntie. You know,
Okay, I'll take that.
yeah, pageant
Sure.
auntie. But everybody needs to like put the phones down and just Relax. The pageant world is just so like digital now, and everybody feels like they got to be doing what everybody else is doing and taking it all in. The comparison does come from the social media, so put your phone down.
That is just good lessons to live by. Awesome. All right, Keri, thank you so much for joining me today and just for pouring your heart and pouring life into this episode. I'm going to use your verbiage that you said because I loved it. And you do. You absolutely pour life into things, to everything that you touch, and to the people that you meet, I can tell. And this has been a really joyful conversation for me too, and just a lot of like really beautiful insight that your perspective brings. And that's the power of this, is that every single one of you, and you are my seventh interview of the 2025 Miss America class, every single one of you is beautifully unique in your own way, and you all bring life lessons learned, perspective, love and passion to this title, to your job, to this podcast, like to the conversations that you're having. It's just like a really, really cool thing. Every single time I've sat down with one of you, I'm just like, I don't know what to expect. But then by the end of it, I was like, just so good. So good. And I want everyone to listen. So thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, glad to have you. Thank you so much. Good luck with the rest of your year. Good luck with your endeavors after this. I'm excited to watch, to see what you get yourself into next, and if I ever see you back on a stage going for another title. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back again very soon with another episode of Sash and Soul in our Crowned and Candid series. I will talk with you then. Until then, stay well. Give yourself grace. Bye. If you've been working so hard but still feel like something's missing, then I want to personally invite you to schedule a free coaching consultation. This is for you if you're tired of overthinking every detail. You're doing everything you can to prepare, practicing your walk, your talent, interview, refining your paperwork, and staying up late analyzing every possible outcome. You put in the work, but still question if you're doing enough or if you are enough. So in just one call, we'll talk through where you're at, what's been holding you back, and how you can start showing up fully prepared to win the title and actually do the job once you get it. If you're looking for more than just surface level prep, and you're ready to prepare with strategy, support, and confidence that actually lasts, I'd love to be part of your process. Head to the link in the show description to grab your spot, and I'll see you there.